Hello and welcome to Conversations with Cynthia. Today we have actor, writer, workshop facilitator, and speaker Elizabeth Liang, known also as Lisa, with us to talk about all the many layers of her cross-cultural childhood, from the best memories to the difficult times, and how she took all of this and put it together to forge her solo show Alien Citizen, which toured the world, is now available on streaming and DVD, and which blew me away when I saw it. Lisa, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you, Cynthia. I'm honored to be here.
Shall we start with your childhood? What can you tell us about you grew up?
Well, my father worked for Xerox back when it was a big company like Apple is now, and they moved us around just like the State Department and the military and religious missions will move families around. So do companies and corporations, as some of your listeners and viewers, I'm sure, know. And they moved us from Guatemala, where I was born and where my father's side of the family lives, to Costa Rica, the USA, Panama, the USA again, Morocco, and Egypt. So I grew up in six countries, and we grew up in a family that was meant to be bilingual. My parents spoke to my brother and me in English because we were in Guatemala and then Costa Rica, and they wanted to make sure that we could speak my mother's native language because she's American. My father's Guatemalan. But then we moved to the States when I was only 3, and we were surrounded and immersed in English, and they were already in the habit of speaking to us in English. So then English became dominant and Spanish less so. So much so that by the time we reached Morocco when I was 12, my mother said, "This is ridiculous. Both of your Spanish is terrible." And they put us into a Spanish school in Morocco where the kids spoke French at recess, so our French got really good. And I was learning classical Arabic. So in a single day, I would speak 4 languages: English at home, Spanish in class, French at recess, and learning Arabic. Um, and as you can imagine, there were lots of wondrous experiences and the hard experiences as well, that are connected to being a third culture kid, but also that are just connected to being in the world. And also because I'm multiracial, multi-ethnic, because my father's Guatemalan side is of Chinese, Spanish, and indigenous descent, and my mother's American side is of Irish, French, German, English descent. Already in our household, being intercultural was the norm. There's nothing unusual about it. It wasn't eye-opening. It was our lives. It was our family. And then my father's family has, I mean, I'm not the first generation that's quote unquote mixed. I believe, the fifth. So we're normal in my family. It's just, and outside the USA, no one really seemed to care. They just wanted to know what nationality we were, because you're foreign, right? But in the USA, where I was a US citizen, have always been a US citizen, was born into US citizenship thanks to my American mom. That's where we it was less. It was let's say it wasn't altogether welcoming. And the USA, because of the way the USA was founded and how it was built and expanded, everything revolves around race, the construct of race, because racism is very real. So there was that stuff. So there was a lot to deal with because every place we went, somebody, as Ruth Van Recken, the brilliant Ruth Van Recken put it, reflected something else back at me, because society reflects us back to ourselves, what the society sees, and every single different place reflected something different to me. The only thing they all agreed on was that because I was a girl, I was lesser than. So that's a lot. It's a lot as you're growing up and you're trying to figure out where you fit and who you are and where you belong, etc. And you keep having to learn new rules. And every third culture kid listening to this and domestic nomad listening to this knows exactly what I'm talking about. But on top of that, then there's what they see when they see you, and everyone sees something different. In the same country, different people see different things when they look at you. But quite often, let's say in North Africa and Morocco and Egypt, Moroccans and Egyptians thought I was Moroccan or Egyptian, but westernized. And that was very looked down upon in Morocco. Egypt, they didn't care so much. Because they have been invaded so many times. They dealt with the Romans, they dealt with the British, they dealt with the Ottomans, they dealt with, they're like, nah, you'll be gone soon enough. And they're right. Um, but then in the USA, I was seen as foreign, even though I was American, and that was very painful. And Guatemala, we left when I was a year old, but went back for Christmas almost every year, and sometimes during the North American summers as well, especially as a kid. And that I was so enveloped in love and care by my family there that it wasn't a problem. Like I knew as I got older, I was getting more and more assimilated to American culture, even outside the US, because we mostly went to American schools. Um, and I don't know how else to put it. American culture is extremely pervasive and dominant, even in countries where it's not. If you're in one of the schools, it dominates. And I'm sure that's true for French schools as well. France dominates, and British schools, I'm sure that's true. But you feel it in American schools. So that's my long way of saying I'm sure that we're the American cousins to my cousins, but they've never said so, and they've never made us feel like we're outsiders. Because so I feel very, very lucky about that. Um, so all of that is a lot. There's lots and lots of layers. It's just so many layers. It's just constant layers. And by the time I reached around the age of 30 or so, I had lived in the States since college, and I've lived in LA my entire adult life, which is impossible but true. Um, People started asking me if I was from the Midwest, the Midwestern USA. And that was mind-blowing and brain melting and uh, identity destroying in a way. It was just like, you've got to be kidding. You've got to be kidding. Like I know I'm good at assimilating and making other people feel comfortable in where they're in their being. But if I've gone so far in this country to sound and look and feel like I'm from Kansas where I've never been, from the Midwest where I've never lived, I've barely even visited, something's wrong. And I decided I can't do this. I can't be so very unknown. I can't be so very anonymous in
Mm.
my being. So I'm going to start writing about how I grew up. And I wrote Alien Citizen. I kept thinking about it, and then one day my brother sent me an email saying there's some publisher call there's or editors calling for essays for an anthology about and by third culture kids and global nomads and kids with international childhoods. And I realized, oh, this is my chance. If I write an essay about creating a solo show about myself, that will
Mm.
force me to create a solo show about myself. And so I did. And so the first things I ever wrote for Alien Citizen were the excerpts in the
Oh.
essay, which are not excerpts at all. They're the first things I ever wrote, and I just shoved them in there. Um, and many of the things about the essay became true, like what stories do you choose, and how do you not offend, and how do you be true to yourself, and blah, blah, blah. Because that's just the storytelling process, the creative process. You are thinking about all of those things. And then over time, it evolved, it grew. I workshopped it. I did like 12 minutes at theater festivals, and then ultimately wrote a full, terrible draft, followed by a performable draft, thanks to a master class I took for 6 months. And then it premiered in May of 2013 in a little black box theater in Hollywood. And from there, I didn't know what would happen. And I was afraid, oh, no one's going to come. I'm going to have to cancel performances. And I might even have to cancel the run because who's going to want to see this? And that didn't happen. The opposite happened. Audiences grew. And then I was able to take it to a festival in New York. And then I got it onto the college circuit. And then I got it at international schools in Panama and Singapore and conferences in Spain and South Africa and a wonderful theater in Iceland. So it's my very long way of saying my childhood fortunately led me to creatively express my childhood in a way that got me more connected to people around the world and got me out of LA. That's the last thing I'll say about this. By the time I was writing it, I was up to my eyeballs with LA and thinking I cannot live here. And this is where I've created a bit of a career, and my husband has a very good editing career, and a move would be a huge thing. And I was still like, I can't be here anymore. And Alien Citizen got me out of town, got me to all the different states, not all the different states, but to like 13 states and Washington, D.C., and to 5 countries, 3 of which I'd never been to. And that saved me. And that saved
Mm.
LA for me. As long as I'm not always here, except when I visit family or have maybe one vacation, then I can handle it. So thank you for listening to that very long answer.
Because you grew up in so many countries and on the move all the time, staying put. And also with all of the different identities that you had in you. And many people find it difficult to deal with having so many identities. But I found it interesting that it seems like the catalyst was not the having many identities. It's that people were giving you the wrong identity, one, and it was the wrong one. And that
Correct.
brought everything back. And it's like, no, this is who I am. And I'm going to make something of it.
That's exactly right. Because in my 30s was when I started being multiracial became a more and more of a, especially because I'm an actor, I'm an actress. So how they see me, perceive me, affects how I get cast, and my looks have changed. The only way in which they've changed radically is that my skin is much lighter now due to acne and retin-A and sloughing off the top layer of one's skin, and it's this whole thing, and then staying indoors, and rehearsals happen at night indoors. Even though I'm in sunny LA, I was indoors rehearsing for theater a lot. So, and that makes a huge difference to people.
Really?
And what they see. Yeah. So I will just quickly say I know precisely what white privilege is because I've been experiencing it since I turned around 30. Because up until then, I absolutely did not experience it, and it is night and day. So if there are any people of color watching this who need to have to explain to their friends who insist that there's no such thing and it can't be that different, you call on me and I'll tell them. They'll believe me because apparently I look white now. But I can absolutely speak to that, and that's up for actually probably for another podcast. But that's part of the layers and the identity and how
Mm,
people see you and how you get treated and all
mm,
that stuff. So, yes, in my 30s, that was coming up. So I decided to produce the play Anton Chekhov's Three Sisters and to deliberately cast the three sisters and the brother with actors who were partially Asian or of Pacific Islander descent and anything else. I didn't care, anything else. And then it just turned out we all happened to be have one parent who's white and indigenous, or one of the it's some combination of that. And then the rest of the cast was open casting, best audition got the part. And that did a lot for me just to be able to present us on stage deliberately and say,
mm.
without changing the show. Well, the only thing we changed was whenever they speak French, someone speaks French, we changed it to Mandarin, which happens like
Oh,
2 or 3 times maybe.
what
But
a
it's the
nice
same,
change.
yeah, but it's the same meaning,
Yes.
just different language. And then I co-hosted a podcast called Hapa Happy Hour about the mixed race experience, but also about being a third culture kid because it just kept coming up. Like my
Mm,
two co-hosts would talk about being from Alaska and from Hawaii, and I was like, I think that it's not a coincidence that two dear friends of mine are not from the mainland USA,
yes.
but are from like the other states that are everyone knows are really cool states, and one of the reasons they're really cool is that they're not on the mainland. Um, but also they're different.
Mm,
Not that all 50 states are wildly different from each other, but they also have things in common. So that's, I was already in my 30s, like working on expressing things about my identity and about my lived experience and about, needing to talk about this stuff. And then finally got to the point where I realized, oh, I'm gonna have to do a solo show about me to really
mm,
tell as much as I can fit in an hour, 24 minutes because exactly like you said, it was too many people
mm,
misidentifying me. And that happened my whole life. But in other ways, it had never been, are you from the Midwest? That was brand new. Like, please ask if I'm from Turkey. I love it. Don't ask me if I'm from bless its heart. I'm just not from Illinois.
Yeah. Let it
So
be at least be something near to what you feel.
right, right, exactly. Yeah.
So in this, as these things were happening, were there memories that would come back and sort of be comforting somehow? Or would this sometimes be even more distressing because they would remind you of what you didn't have at the moment and remind you that something needed to change because it sounds like you were starting to feel quite suffocated, misidentified in one place without being able to go anywhere. Just
Yes,
were good
what
memories comforting or not, or the opposite?
you're it's such a good question because what would happen was uh and this is the essential message of Alien Citizen, which is that kids must be allowed to express the truth of what they're experiencing in order to process it, in order to feel like they are sane
Mm,
and what they're perceiving is true and their feelings are valid because feelings are feelings. No one's doing anything. They're just feeling something. Then the behavior after the feeling is something we have to address. But to, be validated that if something is hard, then you can process it and then move through and beyond it. If you are never allowed to express that something is hard, you start to question yourself, doubt yourself, feel
mm,
suppressed, feel silenced, and then, what you what you resist persists, and what you deny
mm,
can come to define you. So memories that came up tended to be negative ones.
mm,
And so the great thing about doing Alien Citizen, because I knew there was something wrong, that if people heard me talk about it, I'd be talking about what was hard.
mm,
Once I was grown and there were no adults around to say, you can't talk that way.
mm,
But someone might say, it just sounds like you just never have anything positive to say about it. And I realized, oh my God, I would not have wanted to grow up in one country. I really wouldn't.
mm,
So something's wrong. I'm getting stuck in the negative.
mm.
So writing Alien Citizen was this great catharsis because it got me through the hard parts, just giving myself permission to write and express them and figure out whether I was going to put them in the show or not. And then past that into I have countless fantastic, wonderful, glorious, heartwarming memories from my childhood and adolescence that only the most privileged person gets to have because it's in different countries. It's, different friends, different weather systems, different topographies, different food, different, all the sensory delights,
Mm,
all of um the near danger adventures. All, and just the nice, calm, lovely moments in someone else's house where they're serving you tea or something. Just
mm.
you only get to go through all that if you got to live in all those places.
Yeah.
And so it was the most it was the greatest act of self respect and self healing I ever carried out was writing and performing that show.
I feel in the show you show the contrast really well. In the one moment, we can really feel that the excitement, the happiness, the beauty of where you're living. And then something happens and you really express how this was a traumatic moment. This was a sobering moment, and then you work through it, and then we come to another. It's just, I'm going to put below um, a link so that for those of you who haven't seen Alien Citizen, you can find it on DVD and streaming. And for those of you who have seen it, maybe you were in the theater and saw it, you can also get it on DVD or streaming and see it again. It is that good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lisa, as because we have short talks, uh, certainly deep roots. Today was very deep. Is there anything that you would like to leave people with, something to think about as they think about their own stories also? A call to action or something?
Yes, my call to action is always please do tell your story in any form or artistic, creative genre that you like. It could be anything. You could crochet it in some way. It can be for the widest audience or it can be for one person that you've been wanting to share it with. But if your story is interesting, it does matter. Your feelings about it matters. There is an audience. There is a readership. There is a public out there that wants to know because all we need right now and always, but especially now, is connection to be reminded of one another's shared humanity,
Mm,
our shared emotions, our shared experiences, even if the details are wildly different. The emotions underneath are what we relate to and resonate with and connect us. So please do tell your story in whichever way you like. I promise it will touch someone in a way that's helpful to them. If nothing else, it will make them feel less alone. And that is what we need.
thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you, Cynthia.
And thank all of you for being with us today. Do subscribe so that you don't miss any more. Once a month on a Friday, we will have an interview. Also, remember down below there are links so that you can see Alien Citizen also. Thank you.